If tales of long-lost civilizations, bizarre relics that cast doubt on the past, and unexplained footprints hidden beneath the layers of time give you the willies, you've come to the correct spot. Join us as we delve into the mysteries of the past, uncovering long-lost symbols and enigmatic constructions that have been dormant in the desert for millennia. As we delve into enigmas that have remained a mystery to this day, be prepared to ask questions and unleash your imagination. So, buckle up because we're about to unravel a mystery. But first, before this video concludes, if you like and subscribe, you'll have fantastic luck. The Giants of Lovelock Cave and their mysteries. The Paiute people of Nevada's dry deserts passed along an odd myth regarding the Saida, a tribe of enormous redheads, from generation to generation. In their tales, these enormous creatures hunted and devoured humans, instilling dread across the region. A final resolution. The local tribesmen banded together in response to this nightmare, chasing the giants into a cave where they were smoked to death. Archaeological findings in Lovelock Cave prompted some to question if the story had any basis in reality after it had languished as an oral tradition for generations. David Pugh and James Hart, two miners, began excavating the cave in 1911 to gather bat guano for use as fertilizer. They found thousands of unusual objects, such as weave baskets, bird nests, and bat guano instead of only bat guano. Footwear, including traps and sandals that are 15 inches or longer in length. An formal dig was conducted a year later, with UC Berkeley's Llewellyn Loud at the helm. Among the almost 10,000 objects he and his colleagues unearthed were human skeletons. There were accounts of enormous bones and mummified bodies with red hair, some of which were more than 65 feet tall. Because of this, people started caring again about the legends of giants. But then most of those massive bones just disappeared, and now we have more questions than answers. Love Cave is, in fact, an archaeological find, but its true nature remains shrouded in mystery. More than 150 feet in length and 30 feet width make up the cave. An enormous handprint pressed in a stone, enormous sandals, and evidence of fire were discovered next to the entryway by the archaeologists. According to the pot tale, the Sadaka were burned to death. Early accounts mentioned a female mummy who was approximately 65 feet tall and a male who was even taller, both of whom had red hair. However, current research suggests that mineral staining may be the cause of the red hair. The skeleton's real height was closer to 5 feet 11 inches, which is not exactly massive, and that this was due to oxidation over time. Unraveling the Lovelock enigma has been a contentious and centuries-long effort. There was a lack of documentation during the 1912 excavation, which led to the loss or private possession of numerous objects. Subsequent research verified that the cave had continuous use beginning around 1500 BCE. It wasn't until 440 CE that the oldest duck decoys in the world were discovered here. Contemporary genetic testing revealed that a small percentage of our ancestors came from Eurasian countries, but we didn't find any evidence of giants. Due of respect for indigenous peoples, the Humboldt Museum has re-earied the huge skeletons that were on exhibit there, rendering further study of the artifacts extremely challenging. A lot of people have tried to figure out what the Sataka legend means. Because of improved nutrition, scientists think the ancient Lovelock people were just taller than the typical Paiute. Red hair can be either genetic or caused by environmental factors. The 15-inch dash. Someone over 2 meters tall could have owned those sandals. Maybe the story was only embellished with time. There are certain historians and believers who are adamant that the evidence of red hair and fire is real. Although some people even link the ocean with the biblical Nephilim or aliens. The problem is that these theories have never been validated by science. Whether they are based on real events or urban legend, the Lovelock Giants are a potent symbol of the power of storytelling. If the Sadaka were real, they would shed light on the ancient world's rich variety and mystique our species is capable of becoming. Regardless of whether they exist simply in myth, the Paiute people's dread of a formidable adversary is mirrored in their narrative. Why the White Shaman Rock is shrouded in mystery. Across the lower Picus Canyonlands, on the sun-kissed limestone cliffs where the Rio Grande River joins the Pacus River, cryptic markings were left behind by ancient bands of hunter-gatherers thousands of years ago. There are over 300 rock art sites in the area, but the White Shaman Rock Shelter is like a desert treasure. Located in A. Perched atop a tiny rock alcove a few yards off the ground, this 26-foot-long by 13-foot-tall mural is an intricate tapestry of abstract symbols, human and animal forms. As the sun goes down, the stone takes on a flamboyant hue, and the moonlight reveals the ghostly figure of the White Shaman, a figure without a head. The POS River style, to which this artwork belongs, emerged between the years 2500 B.C. and 500 CE. Archaeologists spent decades trying to decipher the significance of these bizarre artifacts. Images. Some thought the shamans painted the painting, which they said depicted magical visions or events related to mescal plant rites. Carolyn Boyd, an artist, visited the rock shelter in 1989 and immediately saw that the markings were not coincidental. Like a contemporary painting, the White Shaman was a meticulously crafted narrative in Boyd's eyes. Attracted to the White Shaman's enigmatic past, Boyd abandoned her painting career to pursue a career in archaeology, spending over 30 years unraveling its mysteries. Arriving at this website is quite the challenge. Descend a steep slope almost 250 feet high while under the blistering sun, which can reach 100 degrees Fahrenheit, after traversing the Chihuahuan Desert and hiking for approximately 15 miles. Those who are truly committed are the ones that venture out here. All that weariness, though, fades away as you stand in front of the mural. The characters, some as large as 20 feet and others as small as lines, appear to be narrating a timeless tale. An observer once remarked, "It feels like I can hear." Boyd spent years studying the White Shaman mural and eventually came to the conclusion that it tells a tale about the sun's creation and the beginning of time, as well as the voices of ancient people echoing through the canyon. According to her 2016 book, The White Shaman Mural, the Utascan peoples, the predecessors of Mexican tribes like the Nahua and Huical, were the ones who etched these patterns into the rock to represent their beliefs. A Huical shaman's emotional reaction to the mural provided the most crucial piece of information, discovering within it the narrative of his own people's genesis. The shaman's trip is symbolized by individuals wearing feathered headdresses, while the boundary between the material and spiritual realms is symbolized by the winding serpent. These details have been preserved in stone for 4,000 years, making the White Shaman one of the earliest North American pictorial recordings. Nonetheless, there are many who disagree with Boyd's reading. According to some archaeologists, these pictures can be about hunting ceremonies or exhibitions of communities' reliance on shamans for healing. Some people think that if we try to read old artworks through the lens of current mythology, we can miss the mark. No one can deny the uniqueness of this artifact or the significance of the White Shaman to the history of this region, even the most cynical among us. Both the Witta Museum and the Shumla Archaeological Research Center, which were both founded by Boyd herself, now serve to preserve the White Shaman mural. September through May is peak tour season, when adventurers brave the elements for a chance to see this magnificent work. Furthermore, the White Shaman's identity is still a mystery, despite scientific progress. Can we decipher the old narrative that these folks intended to tell? Is this world really gone, or are we merely scratching the surface? Bong Pai meets the Unvu. In 1996, a writer by the name of Bayou made an unusual finding while researching the Bong Mountains in a rural spot near the city of Delina in Qinghai Province, China. Strolling along a cliff, he beheld a mysterious triangle cave, seemingly rising 6 meters above the ground. Someone had painstakingly sculpted it out. He was taken aback by what he saw when he entered. Dispersed over the stone floor and walls were a great many rusted metal pipes, the diameters of which varied from a few millimeters to almost 40 centimeters. Outside the cave, some of these pipelines continued up the mountainside until they reached the saltwater shore of Lake Tozan, which is around 80 meters away. Upon initial observation, it appeared to be a premeditated system, the thing that really made the finding. The location was even more unexpected. Seated at a height of around 2,800 m, the region is remote, parched, and uninhabited. For thousands of years, archaeologists found almost no evidence of human settlement in this area. That only served to heighten the air of mystery around these metal pipes. In 2002, the discovery was covered by Chinese media, which prompted a surge of scientists to start looking into it. Pipe samples were collected for study by the Beijing Institute of Geology. According to the results, the majority of the pipe's composition was iron oxide with approximately 8% of their content is unclassified. To top it all off, dating techniques have shown that these pipes may have originated as far ago as 150,000 years ago, when people were still utilizing stone tools and had only just discovered fire. Where there was no evidence of ancient metallurgy, there was an intricate network of iron pipes, and no one could explain their existence. There are a lot of hypotheses. Some think they are artifacts from an alien race or possibly an old civilization that has long since vanished. Reason being, there is a large salt lake adjacent to a pyramid-shaped mountain in the region. Two details that lead one to suspect a covert base. Some have gone so far as to say that these pipes are actually alien technology that crashed on Earth. But scientists have proposed less complicated theories. Research has shown that the pipes included growth rings and other signs of plant life. This explanation proposes that the pipes could actually be the fossilized remains of long-gone tree roots that were mineralized due to the iron-rich soil of the area. Ecological setting. Similar occurrences have been documented in Louisiana, where metal casings encasing ancient tree roots were discovered. This natural explanation is supported by earlier assessments that revealed the pipes to contain a large amount of carbon and other mineral elements. But there are plenty who remain unconvinced. The pipes seem to be part of some engineered system. Why are they all the same size? Why do they persist in an area that has dried up completely after having been a wetland long ago? Then there's the 8% of unknown stuff and a small amount. Traces of moderate radiation were even detected in the samples. Even after more than 2 decades, nobody seems to have figured out what the bong pipes were. Although the site's isolation and closeness to a military region limits study options, it has become a popular tourist destination. The complicated geological history of the Qinghai Plateau, where iron-rich sediment layers may have been left behind by ancient floods, is where some geologists think the real solution resides, according to them. However, the Byong pipes serve as a constant reminder to those who adore mystery that we still don't know a ton of stuff about our planet. Would you call these fossils from nature or artifacts from an ancient culture? The Rapa Nui Moai sculptures and their enigma. Located in the Pacific Ocean, just over 2,300 meters from Chilean mainland, lies the tiny island of Rapa Nui, sometimes called Easter Island. With dimensions of only over 14 miles in length and 7 miles in width, it is widely believed to be the most remote inhabited area on the planet. However, in this enormous, uncharted sea, the Rapanuian people abandoned one of humanity's greatest mysteries. Nearly 1,000 enormous moai sculptures, some of which are 33 feet tall and weigh tens of tons. People are still captivated by the tale of these statues' creation and the reasons behind their eventual destruction. Dutch explorer Jacob Roggeveen named the island Rapa Nui after Easter Sunday, when it was first reported in 1722. He spoke about locals worshipping massive stone sculptures as if they were deities. However, even after all these years, the majority of the moai had already fallen to the parched ground. In any case, what transpired on this island? The majority of the moai sculptures were allegedly sculpted near the now-extinct Reino Raraku volcano, say archaeologists. A soft and easily sculpted variety of compressed volcanic ash made up 95% of the moai. The other 5%, including the world-renowned Hakanaya in the British Museum, were fashioned from considerably harder basalt stone. It is thought that the red stone caps worn by some statues symbolize the hair, authority of tribal chiefs and elders. The biggest obstacle, though, was figuring out how the Rapa could move such huge stones using only stone implements and ropes, carrying some as heavy as 86 tons over the island's rough terrain. The usage of ropes by the ancient islanders to move the sculptures is a well-known theory. The process involved balancing a statue on two ropes, rocking it back and forth to gradually move it closer to its destination. Recent tests using 5 Tonon copies have demonstrated that a few dozen individuals can accomplish the task. Rapa mythology provides a mystic explanation for an enigmatic phenomenon that remains incomprehensible to modern minds. The Moai walked on their own, propelled by the mana or spiritual power of their leaders. Some even speculated that the island's deforestation may have been caused by the statues being transported on logs or rollers. Indeed, Rapa was encircled by lofty palm trees when the initial inhabitants showed up sometime around 1200. In the 17th and 18th centuries, the island was practically deserted, maybe as a result of growth in agricultural production or the requirement for lumber to move the Moai. Why the building of the Moai abruptly came to a halt is another significant inquiry. Among the numerous incomplete sculptures at the Reino Raraku quarry that welcomed Europeans in 1722 was El Gigante, a gigantic work of art standing at over 70 feet in height and approximately 200 tons in weight. According to some scholars, the Rapa Nui civilization fell because of war, sickness, or the depletion of natural resources caused by deforestation. The past of Rapa Nui is replete with unfortunate event. Disease and the slave trade devastated the island after European contact. By 1877, the population had plummeted from thousands to a mere 1,111, possibly as a result of fighting or a decline in religious devotion. The majority of the Moai were knocked down. The removal of certain sculptures, such as Hoa Hakanea, has sparked passionate debates regarding their rightful return to Rapa Nui. Thousands of tourists go to Rapa Nui each year now that it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Restored are numerous Moai, as a result of the work of archaeologists and members of the local community. Despite this priceless legacy, hundreds of monuments have been damaged by new threats like as wildfires and climate change. The permitted DWI bronzes, a riddle unveiled. Back in 1929, in a little town in China's Sichuan province, an irrigation ditch was being dug when a farmer came upon several jade and stone pieces with strange forms. Little did he know that he had unearthed artifacts from a long-vanished culture. Yet the world started to take notice in 1986 when 2 enormous ritual pits were found by brick builders. Along with hundreds of items crafted from gold and jade, archaeologists unearthed over 1,000 unique artifacts in these 2 pits. Among these were enormous bronze masks with unusually projecting eyes, human sculptures measuring over 85 feet in height, a 4-meter bronze tree adorned with perch birds, and more. From 2700 to 1000 BCE, the Suning Dui were a civilization that produced all of these artifacts, around the same time as the Shang dynasty in the north of China. Since the Sun Dui people did not leave any written records or writings like the Shang did, these bronze artifacts are our sole hope of deciphering the secrets of this long-lost empire. Unlike anything else discovered in ancient China, the items from Suning Dui appear to be completely unique. Most notably, in 2021, archaeologists uncovered a massive bronze mask with gigantic ears and bulging eyes that resembled something godlike or otherworldly. The ancient peoples either wore these masks or hung them from wooden poles, according to archaeologists. Ceremonies for metamorphosis. Some masks even feature red paint splotches on the lips and markings close to the ears, giving the impression that they were roused to participate in rituals. Another amazing bronze sculpture, about 85 feet in height, portrays a figure with 2 enormous bracelets and cupped hands, as if clutching a holy relic. Excavations at Sangsing Dui resumed in 2019 and yielded even more astounding findings. Near the initial 2, 6 other ceremonial pits were discovered. Additionally, archaeologists uncovered more than 13,000 unique artifacts. There was an ancient silk artifact from Sichuan, a half-kilogram gold mask, and an eerie bronze sculpture with a human head and a serpent's body among them. Silk, according to the chairman of the excavation team, was also utilized in ceremonies to connect the human and supernatural realms. The fact that most of the relics were purposefully broken or destroyed before being buried adds to the mystique of Sunqing Dui. According to several archaeologists, this was used in religious rituals or as an offering too. Family tree. Yet, absolute certainty is elusive. The sudden abandonment of the entire city, which extended over more than 36 kilometers, occurred approximately 1100 BCE, although no one knows why. The actual significance of DUI sanctions is still up for discussion. There are many who argue that it was never a true kingdom, but rather a trading post where Shang and Southeast Asian cultures had a profound impact. Some people think that the human-headed snake sculptures and old ceremonial wine containers show that there was cultural exchange with the Zhou dynasty. Some hypotheses are so out there that they propose. Although no conclusive evidence has been found linking the big-nosed masks with people from Central Asia or ancient India. Saining DUI is currently undergoing nomination as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and its brilliant archaeological artifacts are on show in a modern museum. The reason behind the Sanjing DUI civilization's disappearance is an unanswered question, even though excavations are continuing. Were these ceremonial pits a last sigh before a catastrophic event, or an indication of a culture entering a new age? Mysteries surrounding the Mech Colossal. Everyone looks up. A farmer was cleaning land in 1862 when he came across a big stone sticking out of the earth. It was a human face etched in stone, with striking features, thick lips, a broad nose, and deeply set eyes, that he discovered when he went deeper. The face stood over 5 feet tall. A gigantic head like this has never been seen before. There have been 17 further discoveries of these heads since then. Among the most impressive artifacts left behind by the Meme people, they date back to the period between 1400 and 900 B.C., the earliest advanced civilization, which established norms for both the people of the Maya and Aztec backgrounds. Because of their enormous size, the heads are breathtaking. Their weight might be anything from 6 to 50 tons, and their height can be anything from over a meter to over 3 meters. The Har volcanic rock, known as basalt, was quarried from the Tux Mountains, which was often more than 90 miles away from the sites of the statue's construction. The fact that the mech lacked both the wheel and metal tools only adds to the incredible nature of the situation. The stones were probably transported across land on wooden rafts after being floated down the river, according to archaeologists. Planks of wood. It may have taken up to 1,500 individuals working non-stop for months to complete each statue. The heads were carved by Memek artisans using even harder stones, such as obsidian or jade. The lie-like facial characteristics were occasionally achieved by polishing the surfaces with wet sand and reeds. Adding to the mystique is the fact that every single one of these heads is one of a kind, with its own distinct set of facial traits and one-of-a-kind headdress. Some have geometric patterns carved into them, while others include jaguar claws. Many hypotheses concerning their function have been generated by this. A number of the heads are thought by experts to be depictions of Met monarchs, sculpted after their deaths. The headdresses may indicate their positions of authority or holy ball games in Mesoamerica. For some, the flat backs of the sculptures resemble an altar, leading them to believe that the heads may have had a role in ritual sacrifice. Strange tales regarding their demise are also carried by many CH heads. To depose a ruler who had passed away or to signal a change in authority, some are purposefully damaged or relocated. Society's governing body. As part of an old ceremony, 3 cult members at Levanta poured oil and salt over the skulls in 2009. The sculptures were damaged as a result. The large noses and thick lips observed on the heads led to a contentious notion proposing an African origin. The indigenous people of Tabasco and Veracruz share similar traits, according to recent studies. Regardless of how much time has passed, all archaeologists now believe that the heads originated in Mesoamerica, members of the Olmec people. Nowadays, museums all around Mexico showcase Olm heads, which attract a lot of curious onlookers. Some have even been taken overseas to serve as symbols of long-gone civilizations. But their real enigma remains unsolved. Why did the CH put such much work into making these massive sculptures? Are they emblems of special rites or spiritual practices? Even though San Lorenzo has been in decline for nearly 2 millennia, the heads remain. Quiet behemoths hidden from Veracruz's heat and breeze. In the end, they prove the ingenuity, strength, and riddles surrounding a culture that played a significant role in Mesoamerican history. The Decalogue stone from Los Lunas and its mystique. In 1933, an archaeologist named Frank Hibben from the University of New Mexico was led to a huge basalt rock that weighed about 80 tons on a parched mountainside around 35 miles south of Los Lunas town. The stone, which was situated halfway up the slope at an elevation of more than 400 feet, had 9 lines of unusual lettering entirely engraved on one smooth face. Lichen had already encrusted the boulder before Hibben got there, and the effects of the passage of time, rendering the inscriptions illegible. In fact, though, as he dug further, he discovered that the characters resembled Paleo-Hebrew, an old Hebrew alphabet that had been in use since at least the 10th century BCE. The translation exposed the inscription to be a synopsis of the Jewish 10 Commandments, with 4 allusions to God. Controversy erupted around the stone right away. If it was an artifact from long ago, it would prove that Semitic peoples arrived in the Americas much earlier than previously thought, prior to Columbus, casting doubt on the whole canon of recorded history. Yet, that wasn't the last piece of the puzzle. The boulder bears an unusual assortment of carved characters, the most of which are Paleo-Hebrew, but which also have some resemblance to Greek letters. This pairing suggests a subsequent epoch, perhaps subsequent to Alexander the Great's reign. One possible explanation put out by linguist Cyrus Gordon is that it was a huge Decalogue tablet, similar to those found at the entrances of houses and synagogues in bygone times. Some specialists, meanwhile, were of the opinion that the language was incorrect. Words and emotions were out of sync with Samaritan customs and missing crucial passages concerning the construction of a temple atop Mount Gerizim. This stone's veracity has been called into question by numerous scholars. It may just be a modern fraud, according to some academics. They point out that the inscription doesn't match any known ancient text and is full of grammatical errors, strange punctuation, and an assortment of characters. Supposedly, in 1930, 2 pranksters from the University of New Mexico carved the stone as a joke on Hibben. The inscriptions were not entirely covered by the stone's natural patina, according to other archaeological teams who examined the site in 1953. This suggests that the carvings might have been produced not long ago. However, there are many who continue to argue that the stone's age is exaggerated. George Mohouse, a geologist, once found a significant discrepancy between the weathering of the ancient Lunas inscription and the graffiti on the hilltop, indicating that the stone could be 500 to 2,000 years old. Betty Fell, a researcher, maintained that certain punctuation genuinely corresponds to ancient manuscripts, although his opinions have not garnered much support. After all, where did the Luna Decalogue stone go? Is it a genuine artifact from the ancient Semites that got lost in the Americas, or a modern-day hoax? Whether it's real or not, the missing Luna stone still draws mystery seekers, academics, and curious onlookers who climb the hill to get a better look. The riddle surrounding the jade sculptures from Costa Rica. Picture yourself inside San Jose's Jade Museum, surrounded by exquisitely carved jade sculptures, each little more than a few centimes tall. Costa Rica is a sight to behold. A few of them morph into figures adorned with feather boas. Some are owls, while others have huge, round eyes, and yet some are cryptic hybrids of human and animal. Dated between 500 BCE and 700 CE, these artifacts are part of Costa Rica's indigenous people's heritage. They represented more than simply beauty. They also served as a link to the gods and a sign of authority. However, there's an exceptionally peculiar aspect. One might find, not found in Costa Rica. This stone can only be found in Guatemala, namely in the Montagua River Valley, which is almost 600 meters distant. How then did these priceless jade blocks make it to Costa Rica? Doris Stone, an archaeologist, started cataloging jade objects found in ancient towns and tombs in 1939. The San Jose Jade Museum, which opened in 1977 and currently holds about 7,000 objects, was founded. Members of the ruling class and chiefs of the tribe would often accessorize with these jade figures. An axe god pendant is a common design, carved onto the edge of an axe in the form of a human or bird. Some are in the shape of snakes, owls, or frogs, all of which are considered lucky and symbolic of fertility. A big mystery surrounds the ancient method of working jade. Complex processes were used to form jade since it is quite hard, ranging from 6 to 7 on the MO scale. An innovative string saw technique was created by the ancient Costa Ricans. They would use abrasive powder and thread to cut curved lines into stone. The feathered headdress pendant in the Denver Museum is only one example of an item that were likely worked on for a considerable amount of time. Blue-green jade from Guatemala was utilized for the best pieces, while serpentine and other local greenstones were used for the more common ones. A vast trading network that began in Central America and extended all the way to Costa Rica in the 3rd century BCE is supported by the existence of jade in the country. To the year 800 CE. In order to return with jade that could be turned into figurines, traders may have negotiated with the Alm or the Maya. Around 700 CE, when Mayan trading posts like Copan fell, the jade supply ran out and was subsequently supplanted by gold. The actual significance of these jade sculptures is a matter of debate. Some researchers think they serve as religious symbols that people use to communicate with the gods or their ancestors, while some see the feathered headdress figures as representations of authority and power. Others place an emphasis on their social position. Even though no archaeological evidence has proven it, some have speculated that South American cultures may have had an impact on their style. The Elton and Antennas Enigma. The Elton was an exceptional vessel. Originally an icebreaker for the United States Navy, it became the first oceanographic research vessel specifically designed to explore the Antarctic. Under thousands of meters of water, the Elton was sent out on a mission to gather samples from the seafloor and take pictures of hitherto unseen vistas. While taking pictures at a depth of around 4,000 meters on one such voyage, the ship managed to capture an image that shocked not only people but also scientists. That image showed anything peculiar resting on the empty seabed. Standing at 16 m in height, it resembled a vertical column with branches that were equally spaced and terminated in little spheres. It appeared at first view to be a cutting-edge piece of technology or a contemporary television antenna. It was just not possible to deploy any artificial gadget at that depth back then. What then was this thing? Under the caption, "Mystery Image from the Ocean Floor," and the photo swiftly made its way into the New Zealand Herald, started a firestorm of conjecture right away. It was thought by many UFO investigators and conspiracy theorists to be an extraterrestrial relic, perhaps buried beneath the ocean to keep tabs on Earth or establish contact with other cultures. There were others who went so far as to suggest that the numerals 144, which they said were associated with the speed of light, may have been part of an old planetary grid that the antenna was located on, which they said was related to the Earth's mystifying cycles. On the other hand, not everyone believed in the paranormal. During 1971, marine scientists Bruce Heen and Charles Clatorisa concretans, a carnivorous sponge, was identified as the object in the photo by Hollister in their book The Face of the Deep. The striking resemblance between this species and the Elton antenna was brought to their attention. Actually, this sponge appears very identical to a contemporary microwave tower in an 1888 drawing by Alexander Agassiz. However, not everyone found this explanation satisfactory. The Altonian scientific group should have identified the object as a sponge immediately. On top of that, these sponges normally reside in groups, with the Allen object standing alone. It seemed more like an engineering marvel than a living being, Its proportions were off-kilter, and its build was substantial. In 2003, researcher Tom Deary verified that the material had been correctly recognized as a sponge, further adding mystery to the story. But it felt like no one outside of the scientific community knew about this. That made others worry if the real purpose of the Elton antenna was to remain a secret. The item is still missing to this day. Even now, the photographically captured location is among the world's most inhospitable and hostile environments. There are some who think it might have been hidden or taken away if the technology in question was enigmatic. Who or what was Elton's antenna then? Could have been a long-lost technical gadget or an enigmatic marine beast. The megaspheres of Russia, a riddle unveiled. A team of miners on Champ Island, Russia, made a shocking find in the summer of 2016. The coal miners discovered scores of huge ball-shaped stones dispersed over the icy surface. These spheres dwarfed all naturally occurring stone spheres to a degree that some of them reached a diameter of 4 meters. The smoothness of their surfaces, nearly polished to perfection as if they had been handcrafted, was what really stunned onlookers. Some of them had split apart, exposing layers within that gave them the appearance of enormous, prehistoric marbles. The indigenous people referred to them as Seda and stories of the Russian. Megaspheres extended extensively. Ice and snow cover the ground for the better part of every year on Champ Island, and temperatures can drop below 30 degrees Celsius. The island is extremely harsh. These enormous spheres, however, emerge on the frozen planet during the brief summer months when the ice evaporates. Scientists from Russia's Institute of Geology were quick to respond to the find. After investigating, they concluded that the spheres formed as a result of concretion, a process by which mineral deposits formed within old sea sediments. Long ago, on the ocean floor, concentric layers of rock, composed of minerals such as silica and calcite, accumulated around a small core over many eons, eventually shaping the rock into flawless spheres. It may take millions of years for this to happen. Although similar geological features can be found in other regions, such as New Zealand's Mora boulders, the size and quantity of stones on Champ Island are truly amazing. A lot of them are double the size of those elsewhere, and some of them look almost purposefully organized, which makes you wonder, could the natural world produce something as perfect as that? Maybe someone was holding their hand the whole time. Some individuals linked the megaspheres to the South African Klerksdorp spheres, which are thought to be billions of years old and even exhibit indications of having been molded by intelligent hands. Within weeks, conspiracy ideas started circulating on mystery websites and social media. They look too perfect to be only a product of nature. But if not, then who made them and how? Questions geologist Andre Even, who investigated the Champ Island site, once commented on this. Such details further enhance the mystique surrounding the megaspheres, but many scientists are still wary, speculating that erosion brought them to the surface millions of years ago, adding them to the inventory of innumerable natural wonders created by our planet. In 2018, an amateur expedition ventured to Champ Island to observe the megaspheres up close, and they found that gentle tapping on some of them produced a hollow, bell-like ringing sound. Some additional speculations included the possibility that the spheres were artifacts from a long-gone civilization or that they had been deliberately organized for ceremonial purposes. Some questioned, if these are really natural, why do they sit in clusters, sometimes forming circles? Furthermore, the island's harsh climate and geographical isolation have hindered studies of the megaspheres. To make matters more complicated, the area now occupied by Champ Island was formerly a clandestine Soviet military zone and the site of several of the world's largest nuclear bomb tests, such as the Tsar Bomba. In 1979, a petroleum geologist in China's Guangxi province made a surprising find, a block of unusual sediment inside the cave. The contents of the block included human and animal bones, charcoal, and burnt clay. Recognizing the significance of this find, he sent the entire block to the Yunnan Provincial Museum in Kunming for further study. The history of this discovery has only added to the mystery, leading many to believe that the actual origins of these stone spheres may still be hidden from the world. The Red Deer Cave People. In 1989, archaeologists started excavating a different cave near Mangzi, Yunnan, which they called Red Deer Cave. As they continued to dig, they discovered more human bones, stone tools, and a lot of burned red deer bones, which constituted evidence that the people who lived here hunted and ate red deer. Hence, the Red Deer Cave People were named. However, the real mystery didn't start until 2008, when a team of international scientists headed by Darren Curnow and G.I. Shuing began After further analysis, it was found that these skeletons were between 17,800 and 11,500 years old, indicating that these people lived during the last stages of the Ice Age. Interestingly, the skeletons shared numerous characteristics with ancient humans, including flat skulls, wide noses, protruding jaws, thick brow ridges, and dense skull bones. These characteristics were most closely associated with Homo erectus, an extinct African hominin species that existed over 1 million years ago. However, the Red Deer Cave People lived during the same period as modern humans, around the time the first agricultural societies emerged in China. In 2010, archaeologists discovered a tiny thigh bone with a thin outer layer, similar to the thigh bones of Homo erectus. The individual it belonged to would have weighed only around 50 kilograms. The scientific community was taken aback when these findings were published in 2012, and Darren Curnow and his colleagues proposed that this could represent either a new species of human or the ancestors of a prehistoric human group that survived due to being cut off in the mountains of southwest China. First, there is the possibility that these people were hybrids of modern humans and some other ancient group, such as the Denisovans, an enigmatic species of human known only from DNA that formerly lived all over Asia. Second, there was the theory that the highlands provided a refuge for ancient people, like the hobbits did on the Indonesian island of Flores. However, not everyone came to this conclusion. Marta Mirazan-Lar, an evolutionary biologist at Cambridge University, held the opinion that in her view, the Red Deer Cave People were just a small group of modern humans with some peculiar traits that evolved in isolation. She went on to say that modern humans can be very diverse, and that peculiar traits do not necessarily indicate a new species. However, in 2015, as the research team persisted in analyzing the thigh bone, they discovered that it was outside the range of variation for modern humans, indicating an older origin. This led some to speculate that this might be evidence of an extremely early migration from Africa, which would have occurred long before modern humans dispersed across the globe. China managed to sequence part of the DNA from the Malyadong skull in 2022, changing everything. The results were surprising. The Red Deer Cave People were actually modern humans, closely related to both present-day East Asians and Native Americans. The skull belonged to a woman, and she might have been an ancestor of the first people who crossed the Bering Strait into the Americas. One mystery remains, though. Why did they have features that resemble those of long-gone humans? If they were hybrids or a different species, how did they manage to survive alongside modern civilizations at the end of the Ice Age? This story serves as a reminder that human history is intricate and that there are numerous enigmatic caves in Asia that hold secrets that have thus far remained unearthed. One such mystery is the Indus Valley Script, which has remained unsolved for over 4,000 years. In the expansive lands surrounding the Indus River, a great ancient civilization once thrived. This was the land of the great cities of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, where the streets, houses, and drainage systems were planned with an advanced level of architecture compared to most ancient civilizations. Despite all this, one thing remains a mystery to historians and archaeologists: the Indus people's writing system. Ever since the discovery of small stone seals engraved with enigmatic symbols in the late 19th century, people have been curious about these signs, wondering what they mean and what stories they convey. Regarding a once thriving civilization, these seals, which are typically smaller than the palm of a hand, have surfaces carved with pictures of humans, animals, and a series of strange symbols. Scholars have amassed over 4,000 of these seals, but none of them have been deciphered. The symbols on the Indies are absolutely unique. They differ from every other ancient writing system that we are aware of, neither Egyptian, nor Mesopotamian, nor Chinese. The majority of lines contain 3 to 5 characters at most, but there are no lengthy passages or clear narratives. The meticulous carving of these symbols demonstrates the ancient people's high regard for record-keeping, even though our current understanding of their meaning remains a mystery. Various theories have been put forth in an effort to decipher this riddle. Some scholars propose that the symbols represent concepts similar to the ideograms of ancient China. Others contend that the Indies symbols were never intended as true writing, but rather, in its place were marks for identifying goods or families used in trade or religious ceremonies. Attempts to decipher the script have been numerous over the past century. One of the main obstacles is the lack of a bilingual inscription, such as the Rosetta Stone, which helped decode Egyptian hieroglyphs. The small number of symbols and the short length of the inscriptions further complicate character comparison and analysis. What's peculiar is that despite this advanced civilization after the Indies, upon the collapse of their civilization around 1900 BC, all signs of their script and language seem to fade away. Many scholars hold the belief that deciphering the Indus script will shed light on their daily lives, beliefs, and maybe even the cause of their abrupt disappearance. Until then, however, those tiny seals bearing their cryptic symbols remain silent, preserving the story of one of the most mysterious civilizations in history. Geroft, the enigmatic civilization by the Halil River. In early 2001, in the Hale River Valley of southeastern Iran, a massive flood transformed everything. This normally placid river eroded layers of earth, revealing a long-lost secret. As the waters receded, a huge ancient cemetery with thousands of graves emerged. However, many of these tombs had already been looted, and strange artifacts started popping up on the antiquities market. For example, delicate jade bracelets, detailed, carved drinking vessels, game boards, and weapons studded with gemstones. Their origins remained a mystery until the intervention of the Iranian authorities. By the end of 2001, the authorities had apprehended several smugglers and confiscated a substantial amount of artifacts and thrown. The trail of the artifacts redirected to the Halil Valley, close to Geroft, a peaceful region not far from the Persian Gulf. Archaeologists were shocked to discover that this was no ordinary burial ground. Beneath the earth, they discovered the remnants of Archaeologists discovered a chlorite stone vessel depicting a two-horned figure wrestling with snakes, a scene reminiscent of ancient Sumerian mythology. They also carved images of people taming serpents into a heavy stone that may have been used as a weight. The civilization flourished from around 2500 to 2200 BCE, during which time it may have even developed its own independent writing system. Nearby, 2 artificial mounds revealed new secrets, showing signs of a vast fortress and an ancient ceremonial structure. The Bronze Age was characterized by the presence of wild animals, and cylindrical jars shaped like palace facades with columns and miniature ziggurats closely resembled Mesopotamian architecture. Archaeologist Isef Majid even proposed that Geroft might be the legendary land of Erida, a location of immense wealth as described in Sumerian legends. Majid made this claim by pointing to an ancient brick engraved with geometric symbols, which is possibly the oldest Elamite writing ever discovered. He speculated that this could be the real origin of ununiform script, but many academics like Oscar Muscarella have argued that these assertions require additional solid proof. The sheer size of Geroft is captivating in and of itself. Konar Sandelby reaches a height of 21 meters. Underneath it, there are the remnants of a big 2-story fortress with brick walls that are up to 11 meters thick. Konar Sandal A, which is less than a mile distant, contains a ceremonial building and might have been a magnificent temple in the past. Since 2014, archaeological teams from Italy, France, and Germany have visited Giruft and found evidence of residential neighborhoods and old workshops. Most notably, the cylinder seals discovered here are in perfect agreement with those in Mesopotamia, suggesting an advanced system of administration and commerce. Nevertheless, not all scholars hold the view that Giruft was a sovereign civilization. Giruft may have been merely a trading post shaped by nearby civilizations like Elam to the west or the Indus Valley to the east, according to these researchers. The cross-cultural artifacts discovered here lend credence to this idea. Despite continuing disputes among experts, the Giruft's riddle persists. If it was the birthplace of a great civilization, then why did it fall into oblivion for 5,000 years? Maybe the 2001 flood was a turning point, unintentionally reviving the mysteries of a long-lost world. Giruft serves as a reminder that human history is rife with obscure corners and unsolved mysteries. An unexpected flood can sometimes unearth a long-lost civilization that thrived but then vanished into oblivion. The Tartaria tablets, an ancient artifact. Archaeologist Nikolai Valesa and his team were excavating a Neolithic settlement in a small village in the Transylvania region of Romania in the summer of 1961. As they continued to dig deeper into a ritual pit, an eerie scene gradually emerged. A bracelet made of seashells, 26 clay and stone figurines, and the charred remains of an adult. Initial evaluations indicated that this person might have been a shaman or someone of great importance. But what really shocked the archaeologists was the discovery of a bracelet made of seashells. The team consisted of 3 small clay tablets, each measuring approximately 6 centimeters in length, adorned with enigmatic symbols. Among these, 2 were round tablets with holes punched through them, suggesting that they had been worn or hung up. Collectively referred to as the Tartaria tablets, these artifacts sent shockwaves through the archaeological community. The symbols on the tablets resembled an early form of writing. One tablet bore an animal head with horns next to what seemed to be a tree or leafy branch. The other 2 tablets were filled with abstract symbols, and what is most impressive is the striking similarity between these symbols and those found in the Vinca symbol system, which was used by a prehistoric Romanian civilization between 4,500 and 3,700 B.C. However, the real controversy surrounding the age of the Tartaria tablets lies in the dating debate. Some scholars have proposed a date of 5,300 BCE based on the artifacts and the layer of soil where they were discovered. If this is correct, then these tablets would have preceded both the Sumerian cuneiform and Greek hieroglyphs by at least 1,000 years, suggesting that the world's first writing system may have originated in Eastern Europe rather than Mesopotamia. Nevertheless, not all scholars hold this view. The tablets were fired at high temperatures when they were sent to the Cluj Museum for preservation, which inadvertently destroyed any chance of direct carbon-14 dating. As a result, there is intense debate among scholars regarding the tablet's actual age, and the mystery is further complicated as researchers start comparing. Similar artifacts have been proposed for the Tartaria tablets, with some linguists proposing a relationship to Linear Crypt or even the island of Cyprus as a possible prototype for writing. However, no one has been able to decipher the symbols yet. The Vinca system records 700 signs, nearly as many as Egyptian hieroglyphs, leading some linguists like Harman to believe that this was a real writing system used for recording trade transactions or rituals. The inscriptions are all rather brief, making it difficult to determine whether this was a true writing system or not. They are exceedingly challenging to decipher, and there are even more audacious hypotheses. According to some, the Tartaria tablets reveal the existence of a long-lost civilization that may have had writings that predate Sumer but were either forgotten or purposefully wiped off the face of the earth. Although there is no evidence to support this theory, it does stimulate interest in a possible long-lost Eastern European civilization that may have once thrived before fading into oblivion. Some have even attempted to connect the symbols to ancient Magwar, but these theories encounter strong opposition owing to a lack of. In 2007, While excavating an ancient burial site in east-central China near the Yellow River, archaeologists uncovered several skeletons of the Yangsha culture, which dates back approximately 5,000 to 7,000 years. All of these skeletons were meticulously interred with their hands placed on their chests, adding another layer of mystery to the 10,000-year-old dwarf skeleton. Apart from the rest of the ordinary remains, there was one small, peculiar skeleton that stood out. It was laid to rest separately, hands hidden behind the back, almost as if to distinguish it from the others. After analyzing the bones, scientists found that this skeleton was even older than the others. It belonged to a person who lived at the end of the Neolithic period about 10,000 years ago. The archaeologist was particularly interested in the body's shape, which revealed that this was an individual with. The body was small, but the proportions were balanced, a type of proportionate dwarfism that differs from the more common forms of dwarfism today. The teeth and bones indicate that the individual was a young adult, approximately 16 to 20 years old at the time of death. The bones were thin and showed signs of osteoporosis, indicating that their lives were difficult. Out of the tens of thousands of ancient skeletons found worldwide, only 40 cases of dwarfism have been documented, and this is one of the rarest cases of its kind. Scientists spent over 10 years studying the case, x-raying the bones, examining the teeth, and analyzing the physical development. They concluded that the individual suffered from hypothyroidism or pituitary dwarfism from an early age, resulting in a small stature. But how did this person manage to survive in a hunter-gatherer society where physical strength was practically essential? Were we truly a part of a culture where being different could lead to exclusion? The burial itself brought up more questions. Why were the hands hidden behind the back? Was it a ritual or a symbol of exclusion? The fact that they were buried with the community suggests they were still accepted or maybe even had a special place in society. Some scholars think that in ancient China, people who were different might have been valued for their intelligence or special abilities. Could this person have been a shaman or had a spiritual function? Another theory proposes that the dwarf skeleton originated in a small, isolated community where hereditary conditions were more common. However, historical records reveal that little people were occasionally subjected to unfair treatment or even enslavement in royal courts. Outside of scientific inquiry, daring theories have surfaced. Some have connected the skeleton to stories about little people in Asian folklore. Others have proposed that this could be proof of a separate ancient group, or even the existence of these theories, which do not yet have concrete proof, begs the question: how many unsolved mysteries in human history still await our discovery? What is truly astonishing, though, is that the dwarf skeleton, which dates back 10,000 years, is more than just an artifact. It provides a glimpse into the diversity of ancient humanity. The fact that such a diminutive being could coexist and be laid to rest with the community demonstrates that ancient society may have been more tolerant than we think. Maybe the story of the lost city of Pavlo-Petri begins in 1904, when a Greek geologist noticed unusual lines, and continues with the emergence of a thriving city on the Greek shores over 5,000 years ago, during the emergence of the first civilizations. Suddenly, the sea swallowed the city, dragging its roads, houses, and tombs down to the ocean floor. Pavlo-Petri is the oldest submerged city ever discovered by humans. Underneath the water, near Vatican Bay, on the southern edge of the Peloponnese Peninsula, just a few meters from the shore at a depth of about 3 to 4 meters, lay the remains of a city that had been submerged for thousands of years. In 1968, a team from Cambridge University mapped the site in detail and discovered a network of streets and more than 37 ancient tombs. The discovery was based on pottery shards, stone tools, and other artifacts. Thus, the secret of Pavlo-Petri was finally revealed. Based on the artifacts found, it was established that Pavlo-Petri was the oldest underwater city ever discovered, dating back to 3,500 BC. What makes it even more remarkable is the almost flawless preservation of the site. Underneath the layers of sand and seawater, the city still retains its clearly planned street grid, 2-story houses with gardens, and a large central square. Archaeologists also discovered an advanced water system spanning over 9 acres, complete with pipes and channels. Pottery from site, weaving frames, and tools demonstrated that. In 2009, a research team from the University of Nottingham working with the Greek Ministry of Culture utilized sonar and underwater robots to create a 3D map of the entire city. They uncovered thousands of square meters of new structures, including grand halls and streets never before recorded. The greatest mystery, however, is why such a meticulously built city was swallowed by the sea and never rebuilt. Scientists have tried to answer this question for decades. The city's continuous development from a Neolithic to the Minoan era has been proven by discoveries, but the reason for Pavlo Petri's submersion is still a mystery. Various theories have been put forth, with some suggesting that a sequence of earthquakes, particularly around 1000 BC or 375 AD, sank the ground and flooded the city. The Peloponnese are well known for their seismic activity, which lends credence to this theory. Others contend that the city was gradually drowned by rising sea levels and subsiding land. When Pavlo Petri was originally constructed, it stood about. Located 3 meters above sea level, Pavlo Petri was already at danger of flooding by 12,200 BC. Some even connect it to the myth of Atlantis because it predates Plato's account of the lost continent. However, the majority of scholars regard this as a fascinating coincidence. Some have proposed that economic collapse or political turmoil, such as the Dorian invasion, may have forced inhabitants to leave before the final flood. Pavlo Petri is more than just a historical artifact. It is a portal into a world that is 5,000 years distant. Long ago, here we observe a sophisticated culture and a flourishing marine trade. The layout of the city and its waterways demonstrate a highly organized society, disproving the notion that those people lived in undeveloped villages. Nevertheless, the riddle persists. Why was a thriving metropolis abandoned and never rebuilt? Were its inhabitants lucky enough to escape a catastrophe, or were they forever carried away by the sea? Who knows how many other long-lost cities lie silently under the waves, awaiting discovery. Today, Pavlo Petri faces dangers posed by pollution, illicit artifact hunting, and the effects of tourism. This city, which is now under the protection of UNESCO, serves as a stark reminder of how fragile our history is. The Gosford glyphs, enigmatic symbols in the Australian bush. Buried in a narrow sandstone cliff in Brisbane Water National Park, over 300 enigmatic symbols that resemble Egyptian hieroglyphs have surfaced. These symbols tell tales of ships, gods, and a lost prince stranded in a distant land. But how did these symbols make it to Australia, thousands of miles from Giza? In 1975, a local surveyor near Coorong, approximately 60 kilometers north of Sydney, found strange markings in the rocks. The area was famous for Guringai Aboriginal rock art, but Dash's find was completely different. Etched onto 235-meter-high sandstone walls were over 300 characters that resembled Egyptian hieroglyphs, including images of the god Anubis, the Ankh symbol, ships, and even the name of king. Dash even noted that new symbols appeared each time he returned to the site, which made him wonder if it was an ancient site or a modern hoax that had been added to over the years. Word quickly spread about the Gosford glyphs, which were carved in a narrow rock crevice that could only be reached by climbing or scaffolding. The engravings tell the story of an Egyptian fleet engulfed in a storm, with survivors landing on an unfamiliar shore and recording their story. The symbols depicted animals like birds, owls, dogs, and hybrid human-animal figures in the manner of ancient Egyptian art. Nevertheless, the symbols were inconsistent. Some appeared freshly carved, while others were faded and worn. Interestingly, the carvings combined symbols from several eras, including ones that did not appear until over 2,000 years after King Khufu. Efforts to decipher these symbols have persisted for decades, but so far, no conclusive result. In 1983, rock art conservator David Lambert noted that a few of the carvings were barely a few months old. Egyptologists, such as Professor Boyo Ainga from Macquarie University, cast doubt on their authenticity, pointing out that the glyphs did not adhere to Egyptian grammar and combined symbols from multiple eras in an amorphous arrangement. Nevertheless, there are many who hold the belief that this represents evidence of an Egyptian expedition to Australia 4,500 years ago, despite the fact that no other artifact from ancient Egypt have ever been discovered on the continent. Various theories speculate on the origins of the Gosford glyphs, with some proposing that they could have been carved by Australian soldiers serving in Egypt during World War I as a memorial or prank, or they could have been made in the 1970s or 1980s by a single individual. Alan Dash himself saw someone carving the rock in 1984. Those who believe they are authentic point out that some of the glyphs reveal an in-depth understanding of ancient Egyptian culture, like the representation of Thoth as a baboon, which was relatively unknown in the West in the early 20th century. Others have attempted to connect the glyphs to Aboriginal people, but the style is totally different. Some have even proposed alien or lost civilization theories, but none of these have any credible evidence. The Gosford glyphs raise serious historical and philosophical questions. If they were a hoax, why would someone take the trouble to carve 300 symbols into a remote rocky gorge over many years? If they were an ancient monument, how could the Egyptians have traveled thousands of miles to Australia and not left any evidence elsewhere? Regardless of the truth, the Gospel glyphs are undoubtedly significant. Symbolize the fact that history is replete with unanswered questions and that at times the most enigmatic objects can also be the most precarious. One such object is the Casso artifact, whose origins can be traced back thousands of years to a time when humans were still subsistence hunters and gatherers. Little did anyone anticipate that, deep within the ancient stone layers of the Casso Mountains in California, a riddle would one day surface, igniting an interminable debate among archaeologists and scientists. The artifact in question was discovered on February 13th. In 1961, 3 rock hunters, Wallace Lane, Virginia Maxey, and Mike Mixel, came across an unusual stone near Olanche, California, while prospecting for quartz on a mountain more than 1,300 meters high. Initially, they mistook it for a geode, but when Michael attempted to split it in half, his diamond saw clamped down so forcefully that it nearly broke. Inside, they discovered what appeared to be a spark plug, a white ceramic cylinder encircling a shiny metal rod, all encased in hardened clay and a fossilized shell. The artifact soon became the subject of heated controversy. X-ray images showed an almost complete internal structure, with a metal spring, a copper ring, and a ceramic core, similar to an early 20th century automotive spark plug. The peculiar thing was that the outer clay could be up to 500,000 years old, predating even the appearance of modern humans. The stone itself was a chunk of petrified clay with a soft hexagonal layer around. The artifact, a ceramic cylinder, contained a metal rod approximately 2 millimeters thick that had not rusted despite its long exposure to rock. Surrounding the rod were intact copper rings. Given these details, one could wonder, if it was a spark plug, why was it discovered inside rock that appeared to be hundreds of thousands of years old? And if it was some kind of ancient technology, who could have created it? Following its discovery, the Casso artifact was sent to an undisclosed laboratory for analysis, where X-rays confirmed the presence of a spark plug-like structure. However, independent experts never examined the artifact. Following 1969, the artifact disappeared, leaving behind only a few hazy magazine photos and contradictory accounts. This further added to the mystery surrounding the Casso artifact. In the decades that followed, numerous scientists attempted to explain what had happened. Some geologists proposed that it was just a modern spark plug encased in clay, a result of concretion, a natural process wherein soil and minerals rapidly accumulate around an object that is not native to the area. In fact, multiple other theories were advanced over the years. At Owens Lake, similar artifacts were discovered a few decades later, encased in similar material. Some questioned the authenticity of the fossilized shell, claiming it was just a misunderstanding because no official scientific report has ever confirmed the half-million-year age. On the other hand, proponents of the out-of-place artifact theory maintain that the Casso artifact demonstrates the existence of advanced technology prior to modern civilization. Still, others consider it a hoax or a strange coincidence of nature. Regardless of the rationale, the consensus is that it is significant. Everyone seems to agree on one thing. The truth can't be confirmed because the original object has long since vanished. The Casso artifact, which is now only known from photographs and memories, still stumps us. If it's a modern spark plug, then why was it buried in rock that looks hundreds of thousands of years old? If it's an artifact of ancient technology, then why isn't there any other evidence of this civilization? And if it's all a coincidence, then how come so many details match up so perfectly? Join us on a journey to uncover humanity's greatest mysteries. If you enjoyed these stories, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss any of the mysteries. The Casso artifact reminds us that history is always full of unanswered questions. Somewhere in the wild mountains or deep beneath the earth, there may still be secrets waiting to shatter everything we think we know about the past of our own species. Looking forward to our upcoming episodes. Catch you on our next journey.